Howdy, and welcome to You've Got People Problems, the podcast where we tackle the leadership challenges that no one wants to talk about, but every business faces. I'm your host, Melissa Ortiz with Activate Human Capital Group, and this is episode 14. Today's episode is a rather personal one. I'm sitting down with a longtime friend and entrepreneur, Nora Zuniga. We're talking about something most of us have experienced, but not everyone is comfortable talking in detail about. What happens when we realize we're personally in the wrong role? This conversation dives into the emotional and professional realities of being misaligned with the work we do every day, how to recognize that misalignment, and more importantly, what the heck to do about it. We also dig into Nora's work as the founder of Healthful Insurance Agency, where she helps small businesses compete by making benefits more human, more accessible, and more affordable. I love this topic, the level of vulnerability we shared, and how personally I think it will resonate with many of our listeners. Hopefully you are one of them. I'm so excited to have Nora Zuniga with me today because we're talking something that's really personal, and we're talking about what happens when you realize that you are in the wrong role. I think as entrepreneurs and as people just going through life, there are periods of our lives where we make a misstep and we look around and realize that maybe we're not contributing at our highest level, and then we have to figure out what to do about that. So I'm really excited to have a really personal conversation. We'll also explore Nora's business and how we interact with entrepreneurs and support their path. But I just thought this was a really good topic as we were previewing where we wanted to go with this discussion. So Nora is the founder of Healthful Insurance Agency. She's on a mission to help small businesses compete with Fortune 500s, starting with benefits that actually work for teams under 100 people. Nora and her team make sure companies have the right support when it comes to health plans, Medicare transitions, payroll, HR, and all the logistical stuff that business owners just don't have time for. I think one of the things she's really good at is just bringing clarity to all this complexity and all of these regulations that can really trip us up as entrepreneurs. So I'm excited to have you at the table. And full disclosure, Nora and I have known each other the majority of our lives. We went to school together. I've been cheering her success from the sidelines through school, through starting her business, through motherhood. And so it's just so fun for me personally to have you here, Nora. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Melissa. I'm so excited to be here. When you started the podcast, I'm like, yes, I know what that topic is. You've got people problems, because that is literally like the industry that I work with. You know, we do employee benefits, so we deal with employees, people all day, every day, business owners, HR. I thought, what a great resource for all entrepreneurs out there. And you bringing so much information to the table that makes us feel less lonely out there, like we're on our own little island. So I'm thankful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Melissa Ortiz, and I have been on this path of helping entrepreneurs and business owners of all sizes align and optimize the talent on their teams, their own talent and the talent of their team members. And what that really means is making sure we've got the right people in the right seats, making sure they're engaged, that they feel appropriately recognized so that they contribute at their highest levels. They can go home and give the most energy to their family, their faith, their physical well-being, their community, but also they can give their best selves at work. And that's a complicated thing, but God, it is so worth the effort. And so these topics are just so valuable. I've been doing this work for the last 18 years, and it's my life's work. I love it. And so having Nora's perspective on this topic, because you see a different side of organizations than I do, I think is really valuable.
Absolutely.
So I want to start, I want to go back in time.
Sure.
And I want you to put yourself in a seat when you looked around and realized you were in the wrong role. What did that feel like? How did you know? And how did it affect your overall health, well-being, morale when you realize you're the wrong person in a seat?
Right. Yeah. So prior to starting my company in 2014, I was assisting a lot of business owners in small groups, small businesses in California and other states, depending where I lived. And I was doing a lot of their operation management. And so a lot of that work was working with benefits, office management, executive assistants, all these roles that I felt small business owners needed. I felt like my job that I was doing was super important and needed to be done, but it was never really fulfilling. Like I worked with a really successful real estate agent in Huntington Beach, and she was a powerhouse. She had 15 to 20 escrows going at the time, and I was kind of responsible for the operational side of that. And so there was a lot of stress, and I never felt like, yeah, my job is super important for her to run her business, but I never felt fulfilled. There was a lot of things that I did to keep the business going, and it kind of played out like that for years. I went into working with a law firm after that, a marketing company, and the last corporate job I held was working for a financial advisor. And truly, when I connected with all those industries, it was not because I was trying to chase something. I was trying to figure out, okay, how does real estate work? Because eventually I'll be a homeowner. And, criminal defense and immigration, how does that work? Like, what are the laws? I wanted to learn more about the industries and like retirement, 401k, what does that mean? I don't even know what that means. And that's kind of how I ended in employee benefits. We did a lot of 401k management. And so we needed someone to speak Spanish and kind of explain retirement plans to their employees. And that's kind of how where I naturally fell in. Business owners would come to me after the meetings and they would say, "Hey, do you also do employee benefits?" Because naturally, when I did the presentations in Spanish, they were very thorough and I made sure that I answered questions for employees. So that was the natural progression of where kind of my career ended. And I went into employee benefits not because I'm like, I love insurance, I love talking about medical, dental, vision. That is not when I went into it, but because I loved connecting with people, and when their eyes light up and you see that face when they understand a product that they have been clueless or frustrated or just, lost in. And I explained that to them in simple terms, like speaking to my 7-year old. And they were like, I can't believe you explained that so simply and everything makes sense. That's when I knew I'm like, this is what I need to be doing, helping people in a really complex industry, an expensive industry, and kind of finding solutions for them and feeling like I'm being an asset to them versus doing the everyday detail of, being an office manager or an operations manager. That didn't fulfill me. This does in a very different way, but similar.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
take me back a little further. You kind of fast forwarded from this, like I'm in a seat doing a task and I'm working really hard and I know my job is important, but what was how did you know that that wasn't for you?
Well, because I would get a task, you get assigned as an employee a task. Like, we're bringing in a new account. There's all this paperwork that needs to be done. And I really enjoyed talking to our clients when we picked up the phone about their case, about their new home that they were purchasing or selling. I really love talking about these business owners who had businesses and, they're opening a new STEP IRA. And I loved connecting with them, like talking to them on the phone, catching up about, how their business is going, how their family is doing, their last vacation that they took, what they're planning to do when they retire, all that fun conversation. And then I had to get to work and do the paperwork side of it. And that drained me. Like it like just buried me. And even though that needed to be done, there's a lot of compliance when you're doing a lot of that type of opening of accounts and buying your, fifth home, your first home, whatever it is. There's a lot of paperwork, details that are important. And naturally, when you're not a professional in that industry and you're not running your business and it's not your passion, like you will miss a detail here and there. And it would make me feel terrible about whenever I made a mistake. Like, why do I feel so bad if I make a small mistake, And it wasn't fulfilling. It didn't feel like, oh, let me fix it and it's going to make me feel better. It just made me feel like this is not the right industry or the right job. I like connecting with people versus now as a business owner. there's mistakes that we make, but fixing that mistake has a different meaning. It's like, yes, I'm going to go ahead and correct it. And I'm happy to tell my client, hey, we've handled it. We apologize for that. It's a totally different meaning versus when you are seated in a position where you're just kind of doing, and there's really nothing fulfilling about it other than just clocking in and out. And that I think is a really dangerous territory to get into, because it just kind of kills your soul a little bit if you're not for the right job.
The word you used that really stuck out to me was drained. It's
Yeah.
just drained me. And I think in all the years of talent optimization work I've done, the resounding theme is it's about energy management. And so if the time we're spending at work is draining away our energy, that's the biggest clue to know we are probably in the wrong role, the wrong organization. Something isn't right. And the
Right.
only person who's responsible for that is you. And I
Mhm.
think that's how often many of us get to be entrepreneurs because we're like,
Mhm.
we throw out the baby with the bathwater. We're like, maybe
Yep.
working for someone else isn't even it. But maybe we just never even found the right job. And I've been there multiple times. One time I was in college and I was working in
Mhm.
a tomato cannery and I
Mhm.
broke my ankle that summer. So I had to work in the night shift because they needed help in the control room, in the lab. And then when I got off the night shift, then I would do these reports for the GM in the morning. Nora, I can do details, but
Right.
also after a night shift, and I don't love details in the first place. I'm like running these reports, and like you were saying, I was making mistakes. I knew I was making mistakes. I felt shame about making the mistakes.
Mhm.
And I was just like mentally and physically exhausted.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, so clearly there are many things about this. I think everyone should work a night shift, like as just a rite of passage,
Right.
because it's a totally different world.
Right.
But you learn these things as you're just drained beyond belief and you know you're letting other people down. And I
Yep.
think that's where a lot of people get into this imposter syndrome you hear about because they're in the wrong role and they can't shine. And one
Mhm.
of the rules of thumb that I use is no one wants to suck at work.
No.
And if you know you're not in the right space, you have to do something. You have to ask for different duties. You have to take on different projects. And sometimes you have to remove yourself entirely and go find something different. And I think that's where you and I were talking about predictive index earlier before we got on the podcast and how like as you reveal, here's what's great about this person, it helps you think about where you should slot them. So as you were telling me that you were a promoter and someone
Which I
who's
had no
great,
idea what it was. Yeah.
what's that?
I had no idea what I was it was until I listened to your podcast. And keep in mind, we work in very like parallel industries, but I don't do HR or evaluations like you do, which is people should hire you. Like for every, if you're a business owner, you should come in and do an evaluation of your team because I've been doing this and I was not even aware of that. When I did that test, I was like, wow, I had no idea that this describes me and it tells you a lot about and it helps you understand. Like, this is why I feel so unmotivated or, you know, um, like still when you do tasks that are not aligned with who you are and your personality. And that's big for employees and employers.
Yeah, for all of us, right? I mean, as you were telling me, the role you really play in your business is around helping organizations onboard, make selections, understand what their options are, that you're out connecting with people, and that's what fulfills you, and serving their needs and solving those problems is what really drives you, not the minutia around the actual details of the plans.
Right.
We can delegate that to team members.
Totally.
And you've done such a great job of crafting your own organization around who you are and what you bring to the table that I want that for every entrepreneur because it's amazing the joy that it brings to your life, to your family, and the success that follows. So even without having the right words, you did
Right.
exactly what you were supposed to do. And
But it's when and here's the other thing when people think about going into starting their own company and their own business, you might have a great concept and a great idea, but not everyone is meant to be seated in that driving position. So, as we were talking earlier, and I said, my husband is amazing at, looking at numbers and being like, that's probably not the best decision financially, but he's also not a risk taker. And he could never be an entrepreneur because as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to take risks and be confident that what you're doing is gonna be okay, and not everyone has that personality to be able to sit in that role. And that's challenging at times too, and it's like, not everyone knows, yeah, I can handle a business. Like I didn't know I can run a business, but just by looking at that personality test, I'm like, that's just very weird that it spitted that out. And 10, 15 years ago, I would have never imagined myself here. But what drove me was like, I like helping people. I like connecting with people. I like talking to people. I love learning what they do and how they got about to having their business. And I love specifically speaking with mothers who are running their own business because that's another level of connection for me. Because I'm like, there's not a lot of us. And when you do find that other person, it's like, oh, it's almost like you found a little community.
Yeah.
And it's great.
It's tremendous. And then if you think about, okay, so if when we think about we realize we're in our wrong roles. I
Hmm.
had an entrepreneurial experience. I had built and sold one business, built and sold a second. Then I came home to help out with our family business, thinking, if this is something I'm going to inherit, my brother and I are fifth generation on the family farm. And I thought I really need to be someone who understands this business to
Hmm.
be a contributor and owner and potentially active member. And Nora, it was awful. I was the wrong person. I was doing nonstop detail work.
Hmm.
It was like compliance nonstop. It was all the HR issues. It was water reporting. It was all details all the time. And I wasn't in charge of anything. And
Yeah.
it was like you were literally saying draining my soul sucking things. And it had nothing to do with my family. They're wonderful. The business is great and healthy. But I didn't have a seat where I could contribute who I was. So when you talk about like you love to connect with people and I love to connect at this really deep level with like what makes your soul happy? What kind of work do you love doing? Who are you at your core and how do you contribute? And I was doing 0% of that
Yeah.
and 100% of the things that I wasn't great at. So like you said, I was making mistakes. I was feeling shame. I was letting my family down. And this like rub between do I choose family loyalty or personal happiness? And it felt like it was one or the other for
Hmm.
years.
Hmm.
And finally, something happened, and I had to make a choice. And I chose myself, and my family was so gracious about it. And I
Hmm.
chose my own career path that I had already invested so much time in and loved, and was doing like in volunteer organizations on the side and whatever. But God, that feeling of like the insecurities creep in when you're not doing things you're good at. You just start to get really down on yourself, and then your
Hmm.
health suffers and your relationships suffer. And I can't emphasize, I see it in my client organizations, I see it with friends, and it's like, oh, but there's so many wonderful things about you that you're not getting to share with the world. And that was one of the reasons I wanted us to pick this topic because we've all been there.
Hmm. And the last position I had, which was working for chief financial advisors, they were great. They're amazing people. I was in the wrong position. I started to be resentful about, where I was in my life. It had nothing to do with them, but it was like unhappy because this is not where I belonged, like, of course, like the job that they do is super important. Helping people retire and plan for their future is key. And that should have fulfilled me. Like I'm helping someone, but it wasn't because I wasn't doing the connection at the top level with the clients. I was not having those deep hearted conversations of why it's important to retire and save and this I was doing the admin work for it. And that's kind of where I feel like a lot of people don't recognize where they're at and they kind of just sit still in that position. And many years down the road, they're just still there and they haven't done what their soul is asking them to do. And they haven't grown professionally and they haven't contributed to their maximum potential to their company and their employer because they're not in that right position. And mentally, they're not in the right position either.
Okay, I keep picking up on these keywords. You're like so great with words, Nora. You said the word should. I
Uh-huh.
felt like I should have been fulfilled. And
Hmm.
I think we all should on ourselves. We use, I should eat less. I should stop drinking. I should be satisfied with this. This is a good paying job. I like the owners of the company. What's wrong with me? Well, what's
Hmm.
wrong is you're probably in the wrong darn seat. And I think that that should, where we use it all the time. And I
Mhm.
try to like alert my friends when they use it and my clients, stop shooting on yourself
Yep.
because it doesn't get you anywhere and it just makes you feel ashamed instead of being like asking yourself, why am I not fulfilled? Why am I resentful? Because I think the other word that really resonated with me was that word resentful. And that is
Mhm.
where so many people get disengaged, frustrated, angry, and then that carries over. Like, where do you think internet trolls come from? They're resentful
Unmotivated.
people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unmotivated. Like you're not motivated to grow in your position. You're not motivated to try harder and be better. And the motivation's gone. And mentally, that's a huge roadblock. You can't have team members who are not motivated. I had a team member on my team who great at, researching like the best products for IT for me. Like how are we gonna like streamline and have systems in place? They were also doing a lot of servicing and they failed at servicing. A lot of like my clients were complaining like, "Hey, this wasn't done. Like what's happening?" Like and I'm like, "It was. I handed it over to a team member and they just didn't." I'm like, "They're smart. Why aren't they doing this?" Because they just don't have the personality to do the servicing part of the job. They had the personality to go and find me the best CRM that I could get, the best, everything, but they just weren't good at this other. And that's why you have to put the right person in the right position and kind of almost have to break down those positions. You can't expect one person to do everything for you. Because that is just, I think that
Not
is just,
fair.
yeah, it's not fair to them or to you as a business owner.
Yeah. And I think that brings me to another thing that as I'm listening to you talk, one of the clues that I think we find in ourselves is when I'm not motivated to keep learning and growing, that's one of the clues we might be in the wrong job. Like, I don't
Hmm.
actually have an interest in this. I don't want to get better. I'm thinking about what am I going to make for dinner? Where am I going this weekend? What am I
Hmm.
going to do for my kids? We're taking family pictures and it's everything but work. And
Hmm.
that's how you know there's a talent mismatch.
Yep.
And you may need to be looking to either contribute in a different way in the same company or
Mhm.
think about something new because it I can't iterate enough how mutually unbeneficial it is for
Mhm.
the wrong person to be in the wrong seat. It's bad for customers, it's bad for the company, it's bad for you personally, it's bad for your reputation,
Right.
and it's really bad for your physical and mental well-being. And it's
Yep.
just like that little bit of courage to even ask yourself, okay, what is it that's not fulfilled? What is the problem? Instead of, I'm resentful and angry, what is it that's going on? And I think coming back to our discussion about predictive index or any of these personality assessments out there, what clues can it give us about what our superpowers are that
Hmm.
might lead us down a path to, well, what kind of jobs might that lead to? And
And it's different too when you're a business owner. You have a different care for what you do versus having someone who's just an employee and they might love their job, but your passion is driven by your clients, the service, the product that you sell, and it's a different perspective. And so for me, when now we're in the position that I'm in, I feel like every day is problem solving because I'm in the healthcare industry. So insurance changes on the daily. Like I had this last week, I caught myself in the spiral of, am I in the right industry? Because you get frustrated because it's always feels like you're trying to solve problems that you are not can't control. I'm just kind of absorbing them and trying to lead my clients in the best way possible with these changes. And for example, last week we have insurance companies do these contracts with medical groups every 5 years they negotiate. And so every 5 years we have negotiations for my Medicare clients who are 65 and older. They specifically choose Hogue Medical Group, who's here in the area. It's one of the best ones to go to. Blue Shield is having a huge contract dispute with them about not renewing. And naturally, by law, they have to send a letter out to all the clients saying, hey, effective July 1st, we may not be in network with this medical group, meaning you're going to lose coverage to your doctors and, you know, healthcare. Clients right before Memorial Day weekend were emailing, calling, freaking out. And I'm just like, I sat there, I'm like, what? why do I even do this? I don't control. And you know what? I'm like, told my husband, I was like, why am I in this industry? And I sat back and I'm like, here's the problem. How are you going to fix it? How are you going to calm down your clients and find a solution for them? Well, I like sat there and schedule phone calls with them and say, hey, it's a big holiday weekend. Let's talk and review your options next week. My team put them on my calendar. Every conversation I've had with them, I brought options. Well, it's a qualifying event, meaning we can switch carriers at this point in time. The contract is still under negotiations by law. They have to send these letters out. And you know what? Like, it's going to be okay. I'm going to find a solution, a carrier that is still in network with Hogue Medical Group, and we're going to switch you over should it come to that. And that is a worst case scenario. What I typically see in these negotiations is that they'll come to an agreement, but they wait until the very last minute, like the June 30th, they'll wait. And those conversations, having those conversations and putting my clients at ease is what fulfills me. Not the madness that happened before that. It's making sure that they're going to be okay when these major changes happen. And that is what I'm like, this is what I love. What I do is finding solutions in chaos for my clients. And I think that that also helps my clients and I bond because not a lot of brokers do that. You know, a lot of them are like, well, you're out of luck, you know, kind of a thing. And that's not who I am and what I do. And I think that's why we've had our clients who signed up with us 10 years ago, they're still with us now because we have a different approach of connecting with people.
I read years ago, I could not quote where it came from. I could probably look it up. This this quote that we all are in the business of solving problems, and your
Hmm.
job is to find the problems you enjoy solving.
Yeah.
That's your whole career. Find the problems you like to solve. I like to figure out which people are in the wrong seat and how do you coach them to higher levels of performance, get them where they need to be, or help free up their future. That's my favorite problem to solve. When you bring problems like that, I think it's such a great tip for anyone who suspects they might be in the wrong seat. It's like, what kind of problems do you naturally like to solve? And follow that trail of breadcrumbs because you just described so beautifully. It's not the chaos, but it's
Hmm.
helping them settle down, know that they're okay, know that you're there to help them through it.
Hmm.
That is such a gift that you bring to clients.
And it's like you have to find what you love and kind of pursue that. You can't just sit there and be like, I hate solving these problems, and then it's not going to serve you or serve your clients. And so it's
You're gonna
like,
do it halfway. You're going to do
yeah.
it just enough, like you were talking about some other benefits brokers, like, yeah, okay, well, that's your option. So we'll move on. And that doesn't,
No, and especially in industries like this, people look to you for answers. You know, when you don't, what I think of my clients is like, I guess I work for the insurance carriers like Anthem, Blue Shield. They pay me. I am a walking salesperson for them, but I also represent the members and my clients. And if there is a claim that it was processed incorrectly, they're billing, you know, the insurance company is denying a procedure, a surgery. Most brokers will say, I'm not going to spend time on that. Here's a 1-800 number, call it in and you figure it out. Whereas I really truly care because I have built these relationships with these clients for years. I'm like, you know what? It's not fair. And I'll sit there and file an appeal with them and have their doctor on the phone call with the claims department and the insurance company. And even if we don't get the right solution for them that they expected, they appreciate that someone held their hand throughout the entire process and they didn't feel alone. And so that in itself, I've noticed over the years that they continue to refer clients because of the experience that they have. It's like we bring, if you love what you do, you bring a different experience to your job.
and I think what you're saying about the appeals process, if you're lucky enough to have never had any health issues,
Hmm.
I was in that position until October of 2020 when my son was burned very, very badly. He had skin grafts on about 70% of his torso, and he was 4, and it was unbearable. There was that
Yeah,
like life flight helicopter involved, 19 days in a hospital in San Francisco, the skin grafts, the all these things, right? And you're
horrible,
learning,
traumatic.
traumatic, and you're dealing with that. But then you come back and you have to deal with all of this insurance. And you're like, okay, I knew in-network was a thing that we needed to do. So I got us to
Mhm.
an in-network hospital in the middle of the chaos. Well, come to find out that the surgeon wasn't in-network
Network.
at the in-network hospital. How am I supposed to know any of this? And just working through the details, it took me years to unravel and clear it all up. And it was agonizing. And having someone like you on the team would have been so beneficial because there were just so many things I didn't know about. I didn't understand. I didn't know how to appeal. And it was agonizing. And so those
Right.
experiences that there are times suck from your life. You feel so insecure because you don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
And I think it's a small business owner, when we think about right people, right seats, which is my whole space, sometimes we don't need a person in the seat full
Mhm.
time. We don't need a person in the seat part time. Sometimes we just need a really good partner who knows their business. I think
Mhm.
most companies under 50 don't need to run their own payroll. We need to find a partner like your agency, Nora, that can just do it, because you can't possibly have your admin, who's your office manager, who processes payroll, who does all these things for you, ever stay abreast of all the political and legal things that are changing.
Right.
And that's one of the things I always recommend entrepreneurs is like, take some of these off your plate, take the risk off your plate, get someone who knows what they're doing. Don't put that on an employee who, if they make a mistake, it's their, their
Mhm.
neighbor who they've
Mhm.
harmed because they just made an honest mistake, or they harm you in the business.
And to be honest, a lot of it is fear too from business owners. So like, how much is this going to cost me? Honestly, it's not going to cost you a lot. It's a lot less than you think it is. And first is your sanity. Two is like the success of your business. And three, it's a lot more affordable to have all these like things in place like HR benefits, payroll, bookkeeping that are consulting partners to you and that you can hire on a retainer or you can hire on a hourly base depending on what you want. It's so flexible that you end up paying so much less than you would than having someone who's not right for the job trying to do all these things and not doing them correctly. We have a client that we're working on that we're bringing off of a PEO. And a PEO is basically an umbrella. It was created with a tax ID. Lots of small business owners go into it because they offer HR, payroll, and benefits. And they're paying about $58,000 in just admin fees. That does not include their benefits, their payroll, their workers' comp. And and they're not great. They don't have the service level that you want someone to give you. And so what we ended up doing is peeling the onion back.
$58,000, which is like a person, a
A
full-time person
person.
dedicated to you.
That is
So
just
sorry, go on.
admin. Just admin. This is nothing to do. And I started peeling back and just in their workers' comp, they were paying, I think, 48,000 a year. We were able to work with a partner who brought it down to 24,000. And they do this because it's for them, I know it's tedious to go in and shop around and interview and find out the best resources. That's what we're here to do. So we're transitioning this client over into having consulting packages and they're going to use them as they need them. Some are going to be like payroll, like we're using Paylocity, which is fantastic because they have everything in house, HR, payroll, and the cost is so much more affordable than the ever imagined. So I feel like um, as a business owner, you have to keep your mind open about the things that are available to you. Not a lot of people think I'm going to have one person do all these things. There's so many resources out there right now that you can set up your business successfully and your team to have access to these resources and do them the right way.
And you don't have to become the expert to
No.
make those decisions. You can have someone source that. I think IT is another place where
Yep.
entrepreneurs undervalue the do it for me. Like when we
Mhm.
got on the call, you're like, I have the screen that's acting up. And it's like, yes, someone knows how to fix that. My husband hooked up my printer the other day, and he used to own an IT company. And I'm like, how the hell was I supposed to do that? That took like 14 steps just to set up my printer. Why is it so complicated? And it's like, you'll make yourself crazy as an entrepreneur trying to do all these things that maybe we don't need to be taking ownership of. And I think your services are such a great case in point.
Yeah, I mean, we're here to help. Same thing. I don't like anything IT. I'm pretty sure it's just a button that I need to connect with my screen, with my Zoom and audio to work. But my husband does all that for me, and because he's really good at it. But I'm not. I'm like, I do benefits. Anything else to run the company, I don't do payroll, accounting. I have people for that. Like, I do not want to drive myself insane trying to do things that aren't fulfilling to me.
And let me make sure I understood correctly. You have team members that do that for clients, right? Okay,
Team
great.
members who do that for clients and team members who do that for me. So I don't
Okay.
run my own payroll. I don't do my own bookkeeping. I do not do any of that. I'm like, I am here to guide you through employee benefits and explain to you every insurance product in the world. I'm happy to do that. Anything outside of that, I hand over to someone else
This is
because
what Susie's
yeah,
doing. This is what Tom brings to
no.
the table.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm like,
Awesome.
payroll's not run correctly. Can you fix this? And I send it to my payroll company. Oh, my CPA needs my taxes. Oh, let's get my bookkeeper to send over everything. I do not want to do any of that because
Because you
what I do, I would be getting in the way of them being done properly.
because you can only do so many things well before you make yourself crazy, before you take all your time and energy away from your family and your
Mhm.
physical well, like all these things compound, and we have to be smarter as leaders.
Mhm.
And okay, so I want to go back. I want to look at our client organizations.
Okay.
And when you think about the interactions you're having, you see a lot within client organizations. What do you see that tells you they've got a team member who's in the wrong role? What kind of clues do you pick up on from the outside looking
Well,
in?
it's a tricky position to be on because I am not in the business of telling them, hey, this is not the right person for that job, but I can easily identify those employees. I have and there's just from my history of my company, there's two reasons usually why clients leave from my book of business. One, they've completely grown to this massive global company that we can't handle, more of a boutique company that handles under 100 employees. Two, they go out of business. And the reason why a lot of them go out of business is because they don't have the right team members doing the right job. And what I see, for example, my job as a benefits broker is to always go in and do a market comparison every year for my clients, showing them, hey, your increase is going 8 to 10% up. I'm going to do a market comparison and see what other companies are offering for the same products, similar products, and see if we can find you a better rate. I would always go to this HR or the person who's in charge of making these decisions, and I'd say, hey, you are in the wrong product. It's costing your company, 20% more than what you should really be paying. I really think I recommend you switching over. My first red flag is that I gave them the numbers. I gave them the waste of funds that they were putting the company, their employees through by not making the change. And what ends up happening is that when you switch carriers, if you are with Anthem and you're recommending, Aetna or Blue Shield, it's paperwork, it's admin. We have to get applications from everybody. That job for them was daunting. They didn't want to do it. So they just said, no, we're going to renew. And every year I was like, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before this company goes out of business. Because if I'm just a small fraction of how a business is run, employee benefits, and they are telling me they don't want to make a change based on my recommendation that's financial, I can only imagine how they're processing all the other decisions that keep a company running. And that's when I'm like, that person is not right for that job. It is puts me in a tricky position because I can't say anything. I'm just their benefits broker and I'm always going to recommend the best. And
You think is best for the company.
I can only get through a certain person. I can't get past them and they're the ones making the decision. 5 years later, the company goes out of business. But because they weren't the right person for that, someone who has the company's best interests and they love their job, they're like, you know what? It's a lot of work, but it's going to save me, my employees, and my employer 20% in premiums. Why wouldn't I do it?
Yes.
You
Why
know?
wouldn't I? And I think that's the difference when I'm doing all my employee engagement work. and we're trying to figure out what are the gaps in engagement. Often it's you have the wrong person in the seat, because when you have the right person in the seat, it's amazing how they'll lean into doing what's right for the company, the customers, the team, the business, because A, they want to keep staying employed, but
Hmm.
B, because it feels good. It's like, what a win. This is something I can share. I can put on my resume. I can share with the owner
Totally.
that might qualify me for a different, that might free up more bonuses for us because they're thinking
100%.
holistically versus when you've got somebody in the wrong world, their world gets really small and the decisions they're making are like, that sounds hard. No, thank you. And they don't
Mhm.
really care if it's saving money. And that just like, knife to the heart as an entrepreneur.
100%. And I do a lot of trying to engage with a lot of HR managers who are in-house in where I live. And a lot of the times, like, hey, I'm happy to do a market comparison. It is not going to cost you anything. It's always smart to kind of look at what you're currently offering and see if there's something. And anytime they say, no, we're good, I'm like, that's dangerous. I'm not trying to get in there and replace your broker, but when you're like, no, I'm good, it means you're not doing your job. You should always look at other options. Doesn't mean you have to change, but you want to make sure that you are doing the full job to its full capacity. When you're not, it's a disadvantage to you and your team members and your company.
I think when it comes to benefits, Nora, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong here. When you think about the complexity of a plan, and there's so many moving parts, I think the insecurity alone of I don't really speak this language, so how the heck am I supposed to make a good decision for my company just can feel so daunting. And
Totally.
having a partner like you, like that's why I would anticipate your niche is like this 100 employees or less, because you know the plans intimately, you can explain them clearly, you can think about the pros and cons for what you know of the business. That's a life's work for somebody, let alone I've got 14 other roles and responsibilities I'm responsible for. So how am I supposed to learn this language?
And not only that, it's like when you partner up with someone like me, I'm not trying to take your job. I'm trying to make it better. And I'm trying to make you the hero of your job. Because if you come in and you show your, boss, your supervisor, hey, I saved us, 30% on benefits without jeopardizing the quality that we offer, they're going to acknowledge you and how good of a job you're doing. But yeah, it is daunting when you think about it. I'm like, don't think about it as you're doing all the work. I'm doing all the legwork and I'm presenting all of the right options and recommendations for your team based on your needs. So I'm doing the legwork and I'm happy to explain to you so that you can better do your job. Your job is not to be a benefits expert. I don't expect you to. What I do expect is for you to always kind of make sure that you are offering the best and that you are saving costs where you can.
I think there's a book that comes to mind called Buy Back Your Time. I don't know if you read it. I think it's a blue cover.
Mhm.
Have you come across it?
No, I've seen it, but I've not read it.
Okay, so the whole concept of the book, and I'm like thinking about bringing us to a close. And this concept is like you can't do everything, and you sure can't do everything well. And thinking really intentionally about what can you outsource, whether it's in your personal life. Like I have a high school girl who comes 2 days a week and does our laundry and puts it away and like gets it out of our rooms out of laundry baskets, washes it, folds it, puts it away. Like that was literally this time that I freed up to go coach swim practice.
Mhm.
And so like these trade-offs that we're making as entrepreneurs and as individuals, as business leaders, when we think about outsourcing some of these pieces, like help me level up my team is a lot of times why people come to me. Help me make better decisions, as I think why they often come to you. And they go to IT companies, help me protect my data and make sure that I have all these backups in place. You go to a bookkeeper who serves 10 other businesses because they can do that really well and they know exactly what's going on. There's a better way. And especially as the smaller organizations are, the more we need to surround ourselves with people at our level who
Mhm.
really care versus hoping that the employees we have are in the right seats. We can continually invest in them, but there are more options than just employees. And I think maybe in California, we're on the leading edge of that because
Yep.
it's so darn expensive to live here. We have to keep getting better. But um,
Absolutely. No, I feel like if you're a business owner, You have to take advantage of services like you and that I bring. I know that I can't change the cost of insurance, but I can definitely shop it around for you and I can definitely bring different options. And I'm like, that's not going to cost you anything. And with you, it's like such a valuable asset to have is coming in and evaluating your team. Are they in the right fit for them? If they're not, it's not serving them or your company. And I was like, those are really important things that I think as business owners, they forget. They're so in the daily like sales, products, whatever. Like you have to have people like us and use our resources.
Yeah, you really do. So, okay, I think we need to go through some tips and tricks that I kind of gleaned and tell me what you really pulled out of this conversation. I'll start with one and then you can add and we can go back and forth. So,
Sure.
one of the things I heard really resonate through this discussion was about paying attention to the clues. Are we feeling drained? Are we feeling resentful? Are we not interested in learning and growing? And whether that's for us personally or watching our team members, whether they report to us or not, that might be a tip that you are in the wrong role. What really stood out for you, Nora? Or do you want to add on to that?
It's like when you come home, like, are you happy? Like, are you bringing your work to your spouse? Are they being your therapist and your counselor? That is going to drain you. That is a huge sign of you are not in the right position with the right company. That whatever it is, you have to do something about it. And that and I remember that because I would come home and complain to my husband, and poor guy, what a saint. He sat there for many years and like listened to me. And he listens to me now, but it's a different way of complaining or like letting my venting. Back then, it was just crying. I was crying a lot, and that's a huge sign that you're not in the right place, and that you need to fix something.
And you need to fix something. No one's going to do it for
That one.
you.
You have to be an advocate. That's why I tell with people in health insurance, like they get frustrated, like it didn't cover this. I'm like, with health insurance, you have to be an advocate for yourself. You cannot sit there and wait for you tell the doctor, "Hey, I may have this," and they'll dismiss you. You have to be an advocate for yourself to schedule that MRI, to schedule the blood work, to get the insurance to cover it. If you are not doing that for yourself, no one's going to help you. You have to do that in life too. You have to be an advocate for yourself in every aspect. Otherwise, you're going to sit there and not be happy.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that brings me to the second tip that I wrote down as we were just chatting, that the concept of shoulding on yourself.
Good.
Should. I should do this. I should do that. Just changing the language we use in our brain. I'm going to look for another job. I'm going to lean into this one. I'm going to ask for a different assignment. Instead of I should do this. I should eat
Mhm.
healthy. I should work out more. Stop.
Yeah.
It's so unhealthy for your brain. It puts you in this, I don't
And
know,
it's,
you feel
and it's
helpless.
never too late. There was a personal trainer that once told me, like when you start off the year and then you say, I'm gonna do a goal and I'm gonna work out 4 times a week and eat healthy and low carbs and all this stuff. It's really hard to me. You have to make goals that are simple. You can't just be like, I am just gonna do it today. They have to be attainable and you have to stick with them. And they said to me, if you fall off the wagon, like that sets people off and say, you know what? I was supposed to work out 4 times a week, and this week I only did two. They're like, doesn't matter when you start again, as long as you start again. That's what matters. Don't sit back and say, last week I only worked out 3 times a week. Who cares? Start today and start doing the 4 times a week. It does not matter. And that sets people mentally back when they're like, I didn't finish my goal, I didn't do it. And it's like, it's never too late.
I have a friend who wakes his kids up every morning and he tells them this every single day. And I can't even imagine a lifetime of hearing this, what it would do to you. Nora, today's the first day of the rest of your life.
Mhm.
Today's the first day. You're just starting for the rest of your life. And that's what that really brings to mind for me is like, okay, so I only got it 2 times last week. It's better than zero.
Yep,
This week I'm working towards four. And I
100%.
just think that mindset
Mind
shift and the
shift.
way we talk to ourselves can be so powerful.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, here's
Well,
the third tip I wrote down. Go
go
ahead.
Well, I was going to say my son, he was having a hard time. He was in this mental state and at the beginning of the year when he started third or second grade, and he would just come home like something terrible happened to me. Like I fell at school and people laughed at me, and I'm like, Lennon, come on, like I'm sorry that happened to you, but look at all the wonderful things that happened today. We made you your favorite food, and your sister loves you. Did you see how she ran? And I started focusing on all the positive things that happened to him. And at night, I started developing at the beginning of the year, of last school year, saying, "Hey, let's talk about our favorite thing that happened today, and then the least favorite thing." And when we first started this activity with him and my daughter, there was a lot of bad things that happened. And, it was a lot of finding, a lot of like, well, I guess one good thing. But as his little brain started to kind of process this and change the way he thinks, sometimes we sit at night and there's like six great things that happened. And then I'm like, was there anything bad that happened or that you didn't like or not favorite? And he's like, and that to me is the
That's his
power
searching.
of how you speak to yourself. And if, to me, I'm like, that is the goal. It's like you have to speak to you kindly and do things for yourself kindly. And if something does not make you happy, you gotta make some changes.
Yeah, I think that's great. Like that brings to mind the quote, be kind to yourself, you're doing the best you can.
Yeah,
Just doing my best. Today my best is not that great, but tomorrow it could be better.
yep, yep, exactly.
Okay, so I have two more tips on here.
Okay.
One is find problems you enjoy solving as your career. That's the single most simple way I think I've heard it phrased because like everybody got problems. The work is still work. It
Mhm.
doesn't feel like a playground, but when we find the jobs we like or that have present problems we continually like solving, that's when it gets really engaging and fun and you feel that growth.
And that fulfillment in life, that's huge.
It's
So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then my last one that I have is for us to all think seriously about what we can outsource so we can focus on what really matters to us because what's life if not a game of priorities?
Right.
So
Yeah,
I'm going to pull up our contact information so we can have that. And Nora, it has been such a pleasure to have you.
likewise. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. And if you'd like to learn more about Nora and the Healthful Insurance Agency, you can contact her on LinkedIn. She has a website. This is her email, nora@healthfulins.com. If you'd like to learn more about predictive index, team health, employee engagement, if doing a team evaluation to see if you've got the right people in the right seats, I can be reached at mortiz@activatehcg, like humancapitalgroup.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I think we could have spent 3 hours on this topic, Nora, and thank you
Yep.
for your vulnerability. These are sometimes kind of scary to admit where we've been.
I
And
was really scared at the beginning, but you are just such an amazing host that you put everyone at ease. So thank you for having me. I'm sending you so much success on the rest of the podcast. And I know that you are going to help so many employers with what you do.
thank you so much. It's such fun doing this podcast. You've got people problems because we all do. And so this topic of us personally being in the wrong roles, it happens to everyone. And I think the more open we can be about that, the better, especially those of us working moms, owning our own business, trying to make it all work, dancing backwards in high heels. I just think the world of you and all that you've accomplished. So thanks for joining me. And I hope you listen in on another You've Got People Problems in the future.
Thank you. Bye, Melissa.
Bye. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of You've Got People Problems. If you got something out of the conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with the other leaders in your network because let's face it, we all have people problems. You can watch full episodes on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast app. But either way, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.